use our imagination, we share in the ethereal currents of the universe. Our identity reaches further than we know. It has no limits.
Ralph Waldo Emerson holds a prominent place in America's cultural history. He forged a philosophy for the New World, elevating common sense over academic argument, self-reliance over subjugation to authority, and individual insight over institutional tradition. He directly influenced the two greatest American poets of the 19th century, Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson. He was godfather to William James, the founder of modern psychology. And he was a friend to the guiding lights of the nature conservation movement, Henry David Thoreau and John Muir. But to me, Emerson is no mere historical relic. He's a living, guiding presence. And I believe that in these divisive times, Emerson's voice and vision are more relevant than ever. That's why I've written 3 books paraphrasing Emerson's message for today.
If we could choose the epoch into which we were born, I'd choose an age of revolution where people are energized by fear and hope, and the old is being challenged by the new. Fortunately, such is our time, and our time, like all times, is a great one in which to live, if we take advantage of its opportunities.
Emerson was a revolutionary thinker from a revolutionary family. In fact, the Revolutionary War literally began in the backyard of his family home in Concord, Massachusetts. Emerson's grandfather, the Reverend William Emerson Sr., was an outspoken patriot who served as chaplain to both the Provincial Congress and the Continental Army. William was present when British troops killed 8 Minutemen at the bridge behind his house, an event his grandson would later immortalize as the shot heard round the world. When Ralph Waldo Emerson was born in 1803, Thomas Jefferson was president. Jefferson, a slave owner, had penned the words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights." But as the Constitution made clear, these words only applied to white male landowners. During his long career as a writer and lecturer, from 1832 to 1881, Emerson worked tirelessly to expand upon America's promise. He forcefully and eloquently asserted that all people, including women, slaves, and members of indigenous tribes, share the same humanity, the same mind, and ultimately, the same soul.
There is one mind common to all humanity. The universal mind is a vast ocean, of which your mind, and everyone else's, is an inlet. Through the mind, you are connected to all that has been done, is being done, and can be done. The thoughts Socrates thought, you can think. The way St. Francis felt, you can feel. The fears and struggles others have faced, you can face and empathize with.
Emerson delivered over 1,500 lectures during his lifetime, traveling all around New England, the Midwest, and even venturing to California. He spread his message of unity.
The soul shines for everyone. There's a common wisdom of humanity shared by all people in all places at all times. The young and the uneducated have as much access to this wisdom as the oldest and most learned.
A reluctant activist, Emerson avoided partisan politics. To invoke the words of his friend Henry David Thoreau, Emerson preferred the eternities to the times. While his record wasn't perfect, on the great moral questions of his day, Emerson stood on the side of humanity, which put him on the right side of history. In 1838, he wrote a scathing open letter to President Van Buren, protesting the removal of the Cherokee people from their lands.
This crime will deprive not only the Cherokees of a country, but all of us. For how can we rightly call such a conspiracy our government, or the land that will be cursed by the tears and bloodshed of their removal, our country?
In the mid-1840s, urged on by his wife and friends, Emerson began speaking at abolitionist rallies, and in 1851 he bitterly condemned the fugitive slave law.
The crimes and cruelties of the slave traders and owners cannot be overstated, and the conscience of humanity cannot sleep. No person of conscience can obey a law that is contrary to the laws of nature and God. A law is only valid so far as it agrees with the higher law. If slavery is not wrong, nothing is wrong. If our resistance to this law is not right, nothing is right.
While lecturing at the Smithsonian Institution in 1862, Emerson met with President Lincoln and urged for an immediate end to slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued the next year. Emerson also supported the early feminist movement. He signed the Declaration of Sentiments of the First Women's Rights Convention at Seneca Falls, New York in 1848, and he spoke at the 1855 convention in Boston.
Let the laws be purged of every impediment to women. Let them pursue every level of education available to men. Let them buy, hold, and sell property just as men do, and let them have a say in making the laws that govern us all.
More than a philosopher, Ralph Waldo Emerson was a mystic. Spending hours in contemplation, often in the woods between his home and Walden Pond, he cultivated his relationship to spirit.
God speaks to us today in our language as well as God ever spoke to people in faraway lands in the distant past. The soul discerns what is true, independent of any tradition, institution, or book. Our religions are storehouses of second-hand insights, useful for inspiration, but harmful when substituted for first-hand communion with the divine soul.
All of humanity's great spiritual teachers, Emerson concluded, point to the same essential truths.
The world's religions represent humanity's attempts in different times and places to take the infinite law of the universe and encapsulate it in stories and rituals. This is why, though their religions conflict with each other on many doctrines, the great saints of all faiths say essentially the same things. All proclaim the same virtues: love, kindness, courage, moderation, justice, diligence, patience, mercy, and humility.
For Emerson, science and spirituality went hand in hand. He kept up with the latest scientific research of his day. Each new discovery, in Emerson's view, revealed a law of spirit as well as matter. From his reading, as well as first-hand observation of nature, Emerson became convinced of the unity and evolution of all life. In 1836, 23 years before Darwin published On the Origin of Species, Emerson described our evolutionary journey in a poem.
A subtle chain of countless rings, the next unto the farthest brings, and, striving to be human, the worm mounts through all the spires of form.
Because he already understood the Genesis creation account as an allegory, accepting evolution didn't drive Emerson to doubt or despair. Quite the opposite. It only increased his wonder at the universal mind, or divine spirit, manifesting itself throughout the natural world. And here's one more reason why Emerson is still relevant today. The recent discoveries of quantum physics have confirmed Emerson's insistence that mind, not matter, is the basis of reality.
Mind is the fundamental reality, the ground of all being, and everything else is its reflection. Every physical object, being, or phenomena in the universe is relative to its invisible, mysterious source. What's more, you and I have access to this source, as it radiates out from the very center of our being.
Emerson was, and is, the great uniter. Speaking across the centuries, he reminds us of what is both a scientific fact and a spiritual truth. That what we share in common as fellow humans is far greater than the superficial differences which seem to divide us.